Welcome back again. In this episode, I will be introducing two terms that we will use in most future episodes, value and contrast. We'll also begin to crack the brain's influence over your drawings by illustrating some everyday optical illusions. In the last episode, I said something that seems a little bit odd. We see with our brains and not with our eyes. In many ways, our eyes are like a camera, and our brain is what develops the film. In fact, at any given instance, our brain is developing multiple films simultaneously and combining them into the one image that we see. Our eyes, like a camera, have a lens that focuses the light onto the film. If you're like me, your lens and eyes are all messed up and you need glasses to help you focus that light. Also, like a camera, our eye has an aperture called the iris that expands and contracts to control how much light actually passes through. In your eyeball, on the back, is the film, also referred to as the retina. The retina is made up of millions and millions of tiny photoreceptors that sense the light. Now, here's a couple trippy facts you may not be aware of. These photoreceptors are actually beneath a few layers of cells and even some tiny blood vessels. Imagine, the clear picture we see is actually the equivalent of looking through a thin sheet of wax paper. Now, the lens also, when light passes through it, flips the image upside down and left to right. Now, go stand on your head and hold some wax paper in front of your eyes and wonder how our brain ever makes a clear picture of it all. Ow. Okay, so I'm no gymnast. There are 4 known photoreceptors in the eye, 1 rod and 3 cones. The rods are responsible for simple light detection. Either there's light or there isn't. Basically, black and white vision. The cones, however, are tuned to specific wavelengths of light, commonly yet incorrectly referred to as red, blue, and green cones. This is where our color vision comes from. The photoreceptors on the retina are laid out in a general map. Think of an archery target. Most of the photoreceptors are clustered near the bullseye. This is called the fovea of the retina. Now, you can sense your fovea. Close one of your eyes and stare at something. What you're staring at, the light that's reflected from it, is landing on your fovea. Now, keep your eyes closed and try not to break your stare, and concentrate on what's surrounding it. The further away you get from center, the less detailed things become, and they even seem to lose color. Now, going back to the example of the archery target, the cones that are responsible for your color vision are clustered real tightly in the middle, but they're non-existent in the outer rings. We cannot see color in our peripheral vision. Sometime after this video is over, you can experiment on yourself. Look straight ahead and hold up different colored objects to the side of your face. As long as you keep looking straight ahead, you will notice that although the objects are different colors, you really can't see it. All you see are blurry shapes of black, white, and gray. Since I'm already off topic here, I'll share with you another little trippy thought to think about. The image map of photoreceptors on our retina is different in every single person. You ever seen one of those movies where someone has to gain entrance into a top secret room and they have their eyes scanned? Well, our retina is a lot like fingerprints. Everyone's is different. So, in a way, it's like we're all operating with different films and we see the world just a little bit differently. Some of us are even have broken cones where we're red-green colorblind or yellow-blue colorblind. Now, I know a lot of you thinking, what does this have to do with drawing? Well, remember how I said that the rods sense light kind of like black and white vision? Well, that brings us to our first term, value. Value is a lot like how our rods work in the eye. It is a measurement of how light or dark something is. The rods in your eye are like their own separate films. They have their own special channel called the magnocellular pathway that takes the input from this film and brings it to the back of our brain for processing with all the different films. In art, value is commonly broken down into a scale. For those of you who use image editors on the computer, it's easy to think of as grayscale. Numbers are used to identify different values of what we see. For example, 0 is white and 10 is black. Different shades of gray fall in between. Colors also have a value, but in this series we won't be talking much about color. In future episodes, you will hear me refer to value in terms of a number. So if I were to say shade an area with a value of 9, you would know that that's a very, very dark gray, almost black. Or if I say the value number of 2, you know that's a light gray that's close to white. This scale is divided into steps to make it easy to understand, but most of the time we aren't dealing with harsh changes in value like these steps. Imagine how a face would look if we could only use these colors of gray, these values. It would be very choppy. Subtle changes in value are called a gradient. A gradient is simply a smooth transition in value. If we were scientists, this art value scale would seem a little screwy. We would want absolute definitions. Black is no light, like being in a deep pitch black cave, and white would be intense light, like staring at the sun. Now, the brain doesn't see in absolutes. If you look at the sun, your eyes are quickly overwhelmed and burned, and it loses its brightness. And when we close our eyes, sometimes we might see flashes, or the brain kicks in and we start seeing daydream-like images. In drawing, we never deal with direct light. It's always reflected. The paper you draw on is your brightest white, and you make grays by making marks. Your regular pencil, the number 2 yellow pencil, can't even make a black mark. The closest it can do is a really dark gray. In art, the value scale is relative, and it's constantly shifting. We can't always use this absolute value scale of pitch black and bright light. If your paper is off-white and your pencil can only make a dark gray, the value scale must be shifted accordingly. There's no use in thinking of pitch black as 10 if you are limited by the pencil you use. Dark gray is now 10 and off-white becomes 0. I like to call this shift in value scale the value range or gradient map. If you're a Photoshopper, you're probably familiar with this term. Gradient map is a tool in Photoshop. Speaking of Photoshop, it makes me think that all of us are looking at a computer right now. So I'll just give you another example. Soon I'm going to make this video go black, and I want you to pay close attention to what you see. What value is it on an absolute value scale where complete pitch black, like the darkest cave, is a value of 10?